What's up, guys, and happy Black History Month. Joining me today to celebrate Black History Month is one of my former professors, Associate Professor of the Teaching, Learning, and Technology Department at Hofstra University's College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and Director of the university's Center for Race, Culture, and Social Justice, Dr. Lightfoot. How are you doing today, Dr. Lightfoot?
Doing just great, thank you.
Thank you for being here. So to give some background information to everyone, the story of Black History Month begins in 1915, half a century after the 13th Amendment abolished slavery in the United States. Known today as the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, the group sponsored a National Negro History Week in 1926, choosing the second week of February to coincide with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. The event inspired schools and communities nationwide to organize local celebrations, establish history clubs, and host performances and lectures. President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month in 1976, calling upon the public to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. My first question for you, the Black diaspora is pretty expansive. I was born in the Bronx, New York. My dad is Jamaican American and my mom is Puerto Rican. What is your background and where are you from, Dr. Lightfoot?
I'm from Chicago, Illinois, born and
Nice.
raised. My
Okay.
father was born in Arkansas, and my mother was born in Mississippi. My father was a preacher, and my mother was a teacher. So I'm coming from preacher-teacher background.
Okay. Okay.
So we're part of the, I guess, 12 generations of Blacks from Africa who had come here early, I guess, 1700s, maybe early 1800s, probably at the latest.
The Biden-Harris administration has been a hot topic in the news since the inauguration. How do you feel about the current administration in office?
I feel like they need to work harder, if that's possible. And I mean, a number of things I think they need to do. They need to expand the Supreme Court for one. They need to go to the next odd number, I would imagine is what, 13, to get the 6 people who are obstructing progress to be in the minority. So I guess 13 would be the next number. I think that's first. I think that's something that needs to happen sooner than later.
Right. I agree. I agree. And I think getting rid of student loan debt, that would be nice too.
Oh, absolutely. All those promises they need to make. They need to,
all the promises they made last
promises.
year.
Absolutely. That they got to get elected and stop being so wimpy. Just fight those people.
Yeah.
And whatever you need to do, executive order, do it executive order. Whatever you need to get these, I guess, Democrat in name only, those two, Arizona and Manchin, so the Arizona woman's Kristen Sinema and the guy Manchin from West Virginia. Right. They need to figure out how to work to either get them to, officially go Republican or, get out.
Right.
They're not helping. So it's a lot. I mean, I'm pleased that they're in office, but it's a lot of work to be done. Just politically speaking, what do you have to do to get these people to get out of the bed with corporate America and get out of the bed with all of these people who really want to stop progress.
Right. And correct everything that was done during the Trump administration.
Yeah. I mean, and that's hard to do. I just find it, just absurd that the guy's not in prison yet. I guess it's coming. I don't know. It's beyond me.
Hopefully,
yeah. I mean, hopefully, something has to happen. Somebody has to be held accountable for what happened, because it's bizarre.
Yeah.
What we've witnessed in the last few years, and the pandemic, of course, hasn't helped, us, on the path to progress. But even that is, people use that as, political bait to make excuses for, things not happening the way they should.
I agree. How do you feel about the state of Black America today? In your opinion, are we progressing?
Um, yes and no. I hate to answer like that, but I think that there is strands within the Black community. Uh, and I like to look at Blacks in diaspora. I think, Black America is, that beacon of light for, all the people of the African diaspora who may not be as tangential or adjacent to privilege and opportunity, as we are in America. So I think that we need to recognize that privilege and recognize that position. So, and really need to connect with, our Caribbean and African mainland, brothers and sisters to, really attach to a message of solidarity, because I think that's where the power is going to be.
Right.
So, I think our progress, has to recognize, who we are, as a people, as a collective. And not that we have to be monolithic in our thinking or, agree on everything, because that's just not realistic. But
Right.
certainly we need to understand that, our fate, as we move forward, and depends on us, coming together on some real key, I think, and important issues.
Right. Over the years, we have seen many biographical films telling the story of significant Black people in history, such as Dorothy Dandridge, Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, and Thurgood Marshall. Which Black historical figure do you believe does not get enough credit and perhaps deserve a biopic of their own?
Carter G. Woodson, hands down.
Carter G. Woodson. Okay.
Not enough credit. This
Okay.
guy was brilliant. And the way you started off this podcast by recognizing the history of Black History Month, he is the one who founded Black History, Negro History Week, which ultimately became Black History Month 50 years, some odd years later, in the 70s. So, and he really was the champion for, the study of Black history, the archival documents and how he collected and studied and, documented these, stories of, ancient African, Egyptian, wisdom. I mean, he was the one. And we need to recognize that more. I mean, his greatest, I think, contribution to us, to make sure that we weren't ashamed of Africa and that we had to counter that narrative of saying that, Africa was, backwards and uncivilized and, never made any contribution to world, progress. He found all of that absurd. And he, dedicated his entire life to challenging that myth. And so if anyone gets the credit, he gets the credit. And yeah, his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, to me, epitomizes this whole idea of, seeking, education for enlightenment, seeking education, to, really tease out one's gifts and talents and your genius. So, his genius was to really, understand and not fall for the okie doke for how we're bamboozled and hoodwinked and run amok, as Malcolm X, talked about that. If you don't know your history, you're destined to repeat, the failures and the shortcomings that, one who, suffers from a lack of connection with their past.
Right. That's a good one. I've definitely heard that before. And I don't think enough people know who he is and like the significance. So I think
Yeah. And see, and the real message of that miseducation, because miseducation is the kind of education you get that makes you hate yourself. Miseducation is the education that you get that makes you, like and love your oppressor more than you like yourself. So you internalize racism. So if whiteness is held up as virtue and whiteness is held up as pure and what one should aspire to and model themselves after, hegemonically speaking, like, this is, the standard of beauty. This is the, standard of knowledge. This is, so if you believe that hierarchy of whiteness, as supreme and blackness, as something to, be ashamed of, then, you've been miseducated, unfortunately. So, you hate yourself. You want to, marry someone who doesn't look like you. You want to, associate with people who don't look like you because you're ashamed of yourself. You hate, like Malcolm X says, who taught you to hate the color of your skin? Who taught you to hate your lips and hate your nose and hate your hair? So oftentimes, and I believe that people in a perfect world, if we lived in a utopic society, that, when politically and economically and socially speaking, culturally speaking, we don't have this hierarchy that's built around white supremacy. I believe that, you should be able to love and marry and whoever you want, but it would be motivated by self-hate. And
Right.
oftentimes you see, a lot of times relationships, platonic and intimate relationships that are built on, self-hate, that, you are the one who, would complain about, being embarrassed by your own people or
Right.
trying to get away from, your own people, which is unfortunate, and to me, that's just, self-destructive behavior. And it also, speaks and points to a wounded self-esteem and a negative self-concept. When those, kinds of attitudes and beliefs, dominate one's consciousness, then you are really going to have a difficult time loving yourself and loving others.
Right. And I think I always talk on the podcast about representation and how much
Mhm.
that matters, like on screen, but it's also education. It's also like what you're being taught in schools.
Yeah.
And I remember I had another black educator on Mr. Morning, and I spoke about how like he only had one black professor growing up, and I only had three. And it's
Oh,
so crazy,
wow.
like all the years of schooling, and like that's the amount of black people that got to, educate me on a particular topic or subject. And that's unfortunate because who's teaching you, like that's important. Who's making the curriculum is very important.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that changes, maybe like for my sister by the time she gets into college, because that's important already. VERZUZ is an American webcast series created by record producers Timbaland and Sweets Beats that was first introduced during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. These battles consist of two musicians, predominantly R&B and hip hop. Artists like Brandy and Monica, Teddy Riley and Babyface, and Ludacris and Nelly have all participated. Which two music artists would you like to see compete in a versus battle?
Oh, that was a difficult one for me. I have to think about that one. But come, I like the newer artists who are have cross generational appeal. They have crossover from generation to generation, so they have an appeal to, old school, middle school, new school. And for me, those artists would be Bruno Mars for one,
Okay. I
and
haven't heard that.
yeah, and maybe Neo. Those two.
Okay.
So how about
Okay.
Neo and Bruno Mars? I would go with them.
That's a good one. I don't think I've heard them in the mix yet. When people talk about dream battles. That's a good one. That's a good
Yeah,
one. I
yeah.
think
And if it was that was those, so those are my male battles, and I think I'm not sure if Saweetie has a large enough repertoire at this point, but at some point maybe she would be versus Rihanna.
Rihanna. Wow. Okay. I wouldn't have immediately put them together. Okay. That's an interesting pair. I was thinking maybe Nicki Minaj against someone. I don't know who. And maybe Jay-Z and versus Nas.
Jay-Z versus Nas. Oh,
I think that would be
okay,
a good one.
okay.
Even though I think he said on Twitter, like, oh, no one can beat me in a versus. I'm unbeatable.
Yeah, well, he's at the top of his game, so
But I think
he
that could be
doesn't think
interesting.
anybody qualifies is in his orbit.
Do you think that we should move it to different genres? Because some people were like, oh, we should have a country versus and a pop versus.
No, no, it's not. We're not there yet.
And finally, how do you celebrate Black History Month, and what does being Black mean to you?
Ooh, black mean to me. Oh, well, black is kinship to me. It's the whole network of family, friends, acquaintances, people who are allied and connect with blackness. And it's every month of the year. It's not just February for me.
Yep.
So
Yes.
it's the culture. It's all about the cultures, and the culture is collective and universal when it comes to food, music, dance, mindfulness, you know, connecting with our past, looking
Right.
forward to our future, enjoying our presence.
I agree. I agree. I think being Black is a beautiful thing. I wish I could like go back in time and tell younger Cervantes, like, because I think when I was younger, I would get down like, oh, like, why are we going? How is it beautiful if we're going through all this stuff? Like, why is God doing us? Why is God doing this to us? But as I got older, I was like, you know what? No, like sometimes, nothing in life is easy. We did have a lot of roadblocks put in front of us, but that doesn't mean that because we had to struggle to get certain things and we're still struggling doesn't mean that we shouldn't have pride or that we shouldn't
Oh,
take pride in
absolutely.
our people.
Yeah.
And I think that was hard for me to juggle, I think, because of probably my white school and all those white people. But I think it took me a while to understand that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of beauty and pride, and I think knowing the history and knowing we all know the notable people, but let's shine a light on the not so notable people who've made significant contributions and
Oh,
don't have
absolutely.
movies and TV shows. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and I'm very, very proud to be Black, and I hope everyone listening takes pride in as well and doesn't just celebrate Black and non-Black people, that just doesn't celebrate February, but all year long, like learn about Black people, because our history, Black American history, is American history.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it should be, an essential part, of history throughout the curriculum. And to me, history is just it's a core subject. It should be a core subject. You shouldn't have a choice about the history and all of this nonsense about critical race theory and banning books. It is just so crazy. I can't even wrap my brain around uh, in 2022 that we're having to deal with this whole onslaught. And I think it's of course politically driven,
Right.
to really, shut down, accurate, representation, of our history and the retelling of our history. It's unfortunate. So, but every time I think we're making progress, I'm saying, I don't think we are. We're going backwards. We take one step forward and two step back.
That's what it feels like. They're censoring the wrong literature. They're censoring the wrong things. So
Yeah,
that's important.
yeah, but people, I think, are smarter than these knuckleheads are giving them credit for, because when they ban the book, they just make it shoot to the top of the bestseller list and increase the
And people
sales.
go people go out and seek it and like want to read
Yeah,
it
yeah,
and
yeah.
purchase
Well, yeah, it's like when you're a kid, they tell you don't do something, and that's what creates the strong desire and the temptation to do it. It's like,
it. Right.
don't eat those cookies out of the cookie jar, and before you
Well, I'm
know
gonna
it,
go eat it
your
now.
hand is in your hand is in the cookie jar, right? So
Right.
yeah.
Switching gears to the TCP rapid fire questions. You don't have to answer quickly. I just call it that. But the first question: what makes you laugh the most?
Mm. Sketch comedy. I like sketch comedy.
Sketch
Political
comedy.
satire. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So old school comedy. One of my favorite from the old school was In Living Color.
And living.
Keenen
Okay.
Ivory. Yeah, I love that. And SNL is kind of funny. I kind of like them if I remember to watch them.
3 things you're grateful for.
Oh, a healthy life. I'm grateful for just a community network of family, friends, and acquaintances. They all give me joy. Uh, and a career. I'm really happy with the career that I ended up uh, here as a professor. It was meant for me. I took the scenic route to get here, but I'm really pleased and grateful that I landed upon uh, you know, teaching at the university, being
I
a
like
professor.
that. I like that. We're grateful for you. We're grateful for you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
What would you tell your younger self?
Ooh, don't be so hard on yourself. I was a brooder sometimes when uh, I really, probably came down too hard on myself, and I should have went with the flow a little more probably. And
Yeah.
yeah, and be patient when things are working themselves out, and that really have more faith that things were going to work out, and I didn't have to brood and worry. And
The same thing. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
oh, getting close to retirement. Yeah,
Do
I can see the
you
light at the end of the tunnel.
what would you name this current chapter of your life?
Hmm. I guess I would call it my Renaissance period. Uh,
Mm.
Rebirth, revival.
Rebirth.
I'm reconnecting with some older, uh, ways of knowing, uh, some of my childhood lessons and early adulthood lessons. I'm reconnecting with those and trying to, inject life into them again, because I think I had strayed away and gotten away from some fundamental, uh, lessons that I learned early on that served me and got me to this point. So I would say uh, it's more of a Renaissance, rebirth, revival chapter.
I like that. I haven't heard that one yet on the podcast. So that's a good one. That's a good one. Thank you so much, Dr. Lightfoot, for joining me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Be sure to leave a rating for the Cervantes podcast on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Cervantes podcast YouTube channel and click the notification bell up top so you never miss a new episode. Thanks for listening. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you.